Without further ado, Mayor Bedke.
Oh. Okay, thanks so much, Sam. Lovely introduction, and thank you all for coming here. It's so much more encouraging to see seats filled than a vast emptiness when I'm up here doing the State of the City. I think part of this is due to you guys who actually care about the city and who pay attention and who watch and pay attention to what's going on with our little town here, our village. All right, first off. Right, so we prosper here in Moscow partly because of you guys, the citizens who care deeply about all of us. Also, the folks who are responsible for implementing the vision that everybody here in town has is the City Council. They're the ones who sit down, direct the policy, the direction, the laws, and provide the resources that our excellent city staff need to carry out what we need to see done here in town. So we have myself as mayor, essentially the CEO of town, and then the board of directors, the City Council, President Gina Teruscio, Vice President Sandra Kelly, also Julia Parker, Haley Lewis Drew Davis, and most recently, Bryce Blankenship, elected just last fall. In conjunction with our city staff, we try to keep up on all things that are going on here in town. Idaho is the fastest growing state. Up until, well, the previous 2 years, it was the fastest growing state. And this is having an impact on all of our resources across the state, how we work with citizens in the municipalities and the counties. Fortunately, Moscow is not growing at 15, 16% per year. We would never be able to keep up. This is a condition that afflicts some of our other municipal organizations down south that are growing at that rate. And to try to provide the resources needed for housing and business at that rate of growth, it's nearly impossible. So we actually enjoy our rather stately growth of about 1%, 1.5% per year. We had a little bit of a retreat back during COVID days, but we've advanced and it looks to be continuing growth. I'm not sure where 2023 wound up population-wise. I'm pretty sure the census people haven't figured that out yet either. But we move along with a steady, measured pace that we can respond to adequately and continue to provide the environment and the services that our citizens need. Additionally, we've been growing. Everybody knows Schweitzer, SEL, down on the south end of town with their huge and really, for a science nerd like myself, glorious facility. They've got so much robot stuff going on in there, it is fantastic. It's an excellent facility, and I suspect there'll be other buildings coming on. But it provides a much needed diversification of our economy on a fundamental basis. Fundamental industry provides much more of an impact on our city and our city's economic benefit than do other service type industries. So the more of this we get, the better off we're apt to be in the long run. We also permitted out 104 dwelling units in 2023, probably, well, for sure not enough to keep up with the demand for more residences. So to try to keep things going, we need to do more infill work, more redevelopment work, probably more dense, which means vertical housing options for people, in order to get the cost of a dwelling unit down to something that is less than unaffordable for people. We have a great collaboration with the University of Idaho. The class sizes keep growing. Last year was the second largest freshman class that the U of I has ever seen, and it continues to grow. So go Vandals on that. So we've got probably a third of the city's population are students, and so the city is working on forging better connections between the city and the university through interactions with the administration there at the U of I, but also the students, the ASUI, the graduate students, to try to facilitate their needs. What is on the students' minds? Is it pedestrian crossings? Are there other things that the city can do? The city council and city staff and myself, we can take our best guess at what the students want, but frequently were probably not right. So we're trying to work more closely with the university to get an idea of what the students want, what the university needs. We have a lot of interactions already, a lot of agreements. The city provides police, fire, EMT services to the university. And so we have to work very closely at all times. So the current goings on in the city, some of the highlights of what we have going on. First among them is the airport, the Moscow-Pullman Regional Airport. So, and this has been a long time coming. We've needed it for years. As we all know, the runway was realigned, widened, lengthened, provision for instrument landing systems were put in, and that has really dropped the cancellation of flights, especially during the winter. So we've dropped from something like 80 or 90 cancellations due to weather down to 3 or 4. So much more reliable anymore. And if you've ever driven the airport road and looked, there it is. The new terminal is due to be completed somewhere around mid-May. And I would also like to point out that these drawings are not exactly current because the large picture of the terminal on top will be having a West End addition put onto it, completed in July, even though the rest of the terminal will be up and running. The airport managed to secure another $10 million in grant money to put the West End addition on now, while the construction guys are still there, instead of demobilizing, remobilizing with extra costs. So that's working. And the small picture down in the lower right with the jet pulled up there does not depict the fact that we will have 2 jetways available for boarding in climate-controlled comfort for everybody from terminal to the jet back in. So the airport continues to grow and prosper. We hope to be securing more flights and more service as time goes on and as the airlines manage to get their feet back under them in terms of number of aircraft and pilots to fly them. So when that happens, we'll be seeing increases in service. Another probably long-term existential threat to Moscow and Pullman both on a regional basis is our water supply. As we all know, we're standing on top of an aquifer that is steadily, albeit more slowly than it has been, declining. It's going to run out eventually. So we need to secure an alternate water supply. And the PBAC, the Palouse Basin Aquifer Committee, has secured $185,000 in grant monies to proceed further to actually start design work on where are we going to get the water from, and start looking at things like rights of way and land that we're going to need to put the facilities on to supply Moscow and Pullman with additional water so we can continue as the municipalities we are today. Moscow also, to essentially, 1, buy us time, and 2, because it's environmentally responsible, we have programs going on to try to minimize our use of water. We have the toilet rebate program going on, which has been for some years, since 2016, but last year replaced 62 old 5-gallon toilets with the low-flow flush toilets in 44 houses, and that saves 275,000-ish gallons of water per year. And since 2016, we've replaced 1,400 of them, and that has saved almost 6 million gallons of water from the aquifer that would otherwise go gracefully down the drain. Also, Wisescape, one of the biggest water wasters there is, are our lush green lawns. They suck up water during the summer, and they look nice, but they have a terrible impact on water. So we have a program that I would hope that people have heard about and would go for, but if you replace 300 square feet of lawn with Xeriscape or artificial turf or something, you can get back $150. I don't know if you've seen it or even noticed it, which is probably a good thing, but the north side of City Hall along the Washington Street frontage, there's a big swatch of artificial grass, and I guarantee you it looks nothing like AstroTurf from the good days. It looks pretty darn good, and even in the depths of winter, it looks pretty darn good. So things like this save us a lot of water. So far, not a lot of participation going on, but I encourage you to look into this and replace some of the grass, turn grass from the major component of your landscape into an accent. reverse it. So make the xeriscape the main feature, make grass the accent feature. We also have the water conservation program that does audits. We have Kelly Cooper, who will come by your house and have a look at your irrigating system and look at the sprinkler heads. Are they clogged up or are they working well? And put those little cones out in the middle of the yard and measure just how much water each area of your lawn is getting. Are you overwatering some areas, underwatering others? So if you are going to have a lawn, make it as efficient as possible and try to save some money that way. We're also improving our radio service. For some years now, we've been aware that the radios don't penetrate some of the buildings in town. And if you're a fireman or a police officer and you're inside one of these buildings on a call and your radio can't get out and you wind up in trouble, what is that worth if you've got a firefighter inside who can't get out? So we're replacing the radios in order to facilitate and enhance our services with the emergency radio people. And it's pricey, it's shockingly pricey, $3.5 million to replace the infrastructure as well as the handheld radios themselves. But we're going to be working on that, and this project should be kicking off a little bit later. We open bids on it on the 27th, and then we'll select one if the price is right and start moving forward with that and get the radios up and running probably by 2025. It's a major project, and we owe it to our emergency responders to give them the tools that they need to do their jobs. Also, EMS in general is being increasingly strained across the state. We rely on volunteers to run our EMS services and fire services. These are not city organizations. These are the volunteers who do the running. The city collaborates with them. The city works with them to try to provide the services that we all need. We've seen a 34% increase over the last 8 years in calls that have come into for a response, and we need to work with our EMS guys to support them. Currently, we have paramedic service, but we don't have enough paramedics on hand to cover all of the demands that we need on a continuing basis. So we need to work with the EMS providers to sit down and work on getting some more paramedics in so we can have 24/7, 365 coverage all the way around city, because it's something that we, the citizens here, expect our services to provide. Our Poor City Shop. I don't know if you guys have ever been out to the end of Van Buren Street out by the intersection of Polk and Public, more or less. But go out there, have a look, peer into it, and go, oh my goodness. The thing has been there for years, since 1968, and is decrepit. If you think about the size of equipment and the computerized needs of vehicles and such that we have nowadays, 1968 is not cutting it. In fact, we have a nice movie that I don't have to play here of the latest flood from Hog Creek going right through the middle of it. Some poor guy's desk is sitting there and water's running underneath of it. We need to work and to replace the city shops. So what we propose is to build some new shop facilities up there that can accommodate things like in the lower right there, our ladder truck. It can actually fit inside for the work that it needs to have done. The study that we most recently completed in 2016 said we need 268% larger space than what we do have. And so we've taken $3.6 million in the ARPA funds that have to be obligated by the end of this year and spent by 2026 in order to build this new facility out here. Nothing fancy, they're steel buildings, steel sides, but still a huge improvement over what we have at the moment, and badly, badly needed to support all of the work that our good city staff does each and every year. They deserve to have the equipment that runs and runs well. Infrastructure, everybody's favorite about they're tearing up the streets. How in the heck am I supposed to get from point A to point B? But the end result is always, always worth it. So Lily Street, out Lily and First Street area, kind of up behind the Furniture Center area, got a major overhaul with the daylighting of Hog Creek going down through there, which used to go underneath the apartment buildings. Probably not a good recipe for structural integrity and things like that. So that was redone. First Street got paved, and there were improvements to the water and the sewer pipes that run underneath Lily Street, which were sadly deficient. I think they dated from back in the early 1900s, made out of clay. So eventually, every piece of infrastructure in the city is going to wear out, and we have to keep up with it and keep replacing and upgrading all of that. We also, trying to look ahead a little bit, down at the south end of town where the new US 95 is coming in, we sort of gazed out to the horizon and said, you know, with the new 4-lane US 95 coming in, there's probably going to be business growth out here. So maybe it's a good idea to extend water and sewer out beyond that intersection now, instead of ripping up a bunch of fresh, new, pretty asphalt. So get the infrastructure in there to accommodate future growth out by Schweitzer and beyond. So that was last year's project, which involved digging trenches that were 20 feet deep so that the pipes could actually flow by way of gravity. So with the hills out there, you got to go pretty deep, put it in. So that was a little bit more of a costly endeavor than we thought, but that's done and ready for future development out there. The 6th Street Bridge, thank goodness, is finally done. So that thing was such a mess, and the old culvert-based bridge would decrease the road width. Every flood we had, the road kept getting narrower and narrow, and they kept putting the Jersey barriers closer and closer. And no, this is not a good solution. So the new bridge was constructed, and you can see in the background also the roundabout at 6th and Mountain View, which had 3 spokes on it for a while. And now with the construction of the bridge, we have the 4th spoke, and that has necessitated another round of learning for everybody who drives that road. How does this roundabout work? To whom am I yielding at any given moment? And so far, catastrophe has not ensued, and it seems to be working, but some folks have a little more of a learning curve than others when it comes to a 4-spoke roundabout. I suggest they go to Europe if they really want to experience the thrill ride. Also, out along the Pullman Road, I'm sure everybody noticed this little bit of work going on too. Replacement of the water main on the south side of the highway. Our main water wells are out on the border. They produce most of our water right from 2 wells right along the border. Well, it's fine if they're producing, but how do you get the water to where it can be used? Most of Moscow's residents are on the east side of town, so how do you get the water from the west side over to the east side? Well, there it is, upsizing the water mains to pump the water across to places like the Vista Reservoir and other spots where it can be used beneficially and relieve some of the use of other wells within town. So that was a major project that thankfully was done in one construction season and is now finished and operating. Booster pump stations, you've seen these little guys popping up around town. We have to provide fire flow, and without some extra boosting of the water pressure, you can't get 3,500 gallons a minute without one of these things. And they are fantastically expensive, about $4 million a pop to put all that equipment into a little hut. So we've been building those as we may around town. There's one out on White Avenue. There's this one up at Indian Hills. There's another one out at Ponderosa being built. So these are ones that we need for health and safety in providing the water flow that we need in case there's a fire. And they all also get to have their own generators so that even during times of power failure, you still have enough electricity to have the things run. I will say that the generators are plumbed in for natural gas, which has its pluses and minuses, as we all know from this last fall. But by and large, natural gas is much more reliable than diesel that has to be changed out frequently so it doesn't gel in a tank and things like that. So, also, well number 6, also out at the city shops, got replaced. That poor little building does not adequately demonstrate its precarious nature. I was thinking another good Palouse windstorm that came through would topple a thing like a deck of cards. It was leaning and seriously out of date. So that was reconstructed. Inside, we got rid of the chlorine tanks. You know, chlorine, World War I warfare stuff. If the tanks go over, the gas, you know, soaks the neighborhood to the dismay of local residents. So instead, we got chlorine generators, which generates chlorine from salt. So you pour in the salt, electrolysis occurs, chlorine gas is produced, and that's what you use for sanitizing the water. So anyway, so we've upgraded all of these systems too for safety reasons, among other things. Asphalt rubber chip program. You've seen the guys coming around town putting down the chip seal and stuff. Well, this isn't your traditional pour on the tar, dump on the gravel, squish it around, and then tell traffic to drive slow for 3 weeks because you don't want your windshields broken. In this case, the rubberized chip seal is more like a membrane that is laid down over the top of the streets. So I don't know if you can see well enough on these slides, but there's a lot of alligatoring that went on there. And now the alligatoring is covered up. You can still see it, but the joy of this seal is that it's flexible and the cracks won't percolate on upwards. They won't propagate. So now we've extended the life of these streets that might be getting otherwise marginal with the alligatoring. And it's kind of, okay, it's flexible, so water's not going to get down and further heave out the alligators and cause a bunch of potholes in town. So this, thanks to the ingenuity of our public works guys and streets guys, has done a great job in solving some of our problems with our streets, which we are having difficulty funding for reasons that I'll talk about in a little bit. Lighting along the Paradise Path, especially behind the old Identity, now named something else, but anyway, that stretch of the Paradise Path is very dark because of overhanging branches and things. For safety reasons and for, well, all safety reasons, just because people feel more secure with light, but also you don't get run down by a bike if you happen to be there walking after dark. So we put in lighting along there. New fire engine number 20. So this is part of our ongoing replacement of fire engines and emergency medical and things like that, the equipment that they need. So every other year for the past 3 years, we've bought a new fire engine. And I don't know if you guys know how much these things cost, but that's $600,000 sitting there. You know, so much for your posh Porsche and things like this. Ha! This thing is plenty expensive. Also, in addition to that, we're going to be replacing our ladder truck in a couple of years. University of Idaho chips in half the price. We chip in half the price for the ladder truck that we need because of Theophilus Tower. You got to have something high enough for that. Ladder truck, they scoff at $600,000. A ladder truck goes for $1.6 million. And so we have contracted for delivery of the new ladder truck in a couple of years, knowing full well that the price is going to do nothing but go up further. City operations, water reclamation and reuse facility. That is a really interesting facility. If you've never taken a tour out there, it might be worth your while. The thing is wicked cool, especially considering what it does. But we've had no violations of phosphorus, nitrogen, any other measured attribute of wastewater treatment in 21, 22. I don't think we had one in 23 either, and we're got a clean record in 24. So we are doing great with our water treatment plant out there, and we'll be investing money in that over the next few years. Over the next 10 years, we're looking at about a $58 million bill to keep that thing up to snuff. If you don't keep it up to snuff, the EPA will come and visit the city with a fine. And the fines run to something like $37,000 per day per violation. I would rather spend the money on upkeep than paying the EPA money for our wickedness. Our staff out there does a fantastic job, and they've always got their eye on it. They're very inventive and really do a fine job of maintaining that facility. Relative to all the stuff underground that we don't ever see, and hence we never ever think about it. We've only had one water line break in 2023, and record low wastewater backups, the sewer pipes. They used to back up more frequently, but because of the efforts of staff, been keeping a better eye on that, cleaning out the pipes, making sure everything runs, initiating a fat oil grease program with the restaurants so that the grease doesn't go down the drain, completely solidify into a fat sickle right there in the middle of the sewer, and so things keep on flowing. It works well. So again, our staff are doing a great job in surveying all of the pipes that go underneath town. Another reason that there are fewer backups in the systems is because we go through and we sweep the streets. That's a lot of weight of stuff that they pulled off of the streets. And if you're pulling it off the streets, 1,000,000+ pounds of it, that means that stuff's not going down the storm drains and into the storm water system and clogging that up. So the more stuff we can pull off the streets, so much the better. So when you see the vacuum guys going down the street, don't get upset with them, don't honk at them. They're doing this for your own good, which actually sounds a lot like my parents. Take this medicine, it's for your own good. So definitely, they do a great job cleaning all of that out. This new stormwater utility that we're all paying, $7.92 per month per house on. Larger places that have big parking lots like the Best Western pay more. But 1,400 cubic feet of material was pulled out of those storm drains. And so all those leaves and gluck and other stuff that winds up down in there is going to clog the pipes unless they go through with the jet trucks and pull it all out and then use that high pressure hose to knock stuff loose so they can actually pull it back out. Makes a big difference on the way the stormwater system works, and again, keeps us out of, hot water with the EPA, because that's another requirement for our water discharge permits that they allow us to do. Alternative fuels, we're buying cars for daily use for city staff, people like the inspectors or other people that need to run around town, but only during the day. So we're buying electrical vehicles for them, and they get plugged in the city hall lot, and every day you got a fresh new battery, off you go. Save on gas, save on CO2 emissions. Police, we've completed the hybridizing of the police cars, so they're all hybrids now, and that saves a tremendous amount of gas because those guys are circulating around town all the time. And so if they can do a fair bit of it on battery, this is good. So all the police are into hybrid vehicles. All around, we use 5.5% less fuel than we did in previous years. That's $10,000 in savings. And just as important, that's 25 tons of CO2 we're not putting out. This is in keeping with the council's approval of the Climate Action Plan, where the city is trying to reduce its impact on the environment all around. Water treatment and reuse again, like I said, that facility is crazy good, but the water that is treated coming out of the wastewater plant is reused mostly by the university. So there's some large storage tanks there. We fill them up, and during the summertime, the water is used for the Wicks field, the play fields. It's used for the arboretum. It's used for the golf course. And that's 104 million gallons per year that's not depleted from the aquifer as a result. And the university looks all the better because they've got green grass, while some of us out in town who have not wise-scaped the yards have brown yards. So think about wise-scaping just for that, too. The parks people, they've got 104 properties, park properties in town. That's a lot to maintain, 62 miles of trails and sidewalks, and they've got 7 people to do it. So don't be too hard on folks when it's not done. The pathway hasn't been plowed. I'm unhappy with that. Don't get upset with it. You've only got 7 people to do 62 miles. And that's not the streets. That's just the pathways and sidewalks around town. Snow removal, not so much a big deal this year, but in previous years where we've gotten snowed in pretty hard, it takes a lot of effort. And I'm sure a lot of you guys who are long-term residents remember the berms. You remember seeing the cars high-centered trying to get across a berm. Anymore, we're pretty good at getting out there, removing those berms, keeping the streets, the highways, residential areas clean and usable by the citizens. I don't hear nearly as much complaining about snow removal in Moscow, as I hear they do up in Spokane, where their snow removal is not what it could be, I think. So, community arts and culture. Moscow has a reputation of being a fun place to be at all times of the year. This is great for commerce. The Chamber of Commerce keeps working on issues like this to turn Moscow into Fest City. So it works for me. So there's various festivals that go on throughout the year, and this is what we do partly. Perhaps the best example of that is the farmers market. It gets 7,000 plus people attending that thing every single week. That's 37 new vendors in 2023, and there's a waiting list of other people who want to get in on this. $2 million in gross sales. Absolutely fantastic. And it's number 2 in Idaho. Those stinkers down south in Meridian, I think, have crept ahead. It's the 2nd in the Pacific Northwest, 12th in the nation. And the voting comes in online. So I encourage you next year when we get into farmers market season and the voting opens, vote for Moscow's farmer market. Put us in the top 5. We can do it. So definitely vote. If you have to, get another Gmail address and vote again. So anyway, it is an absolute highlight and a delight to have here in town, and the hard work of the people who put it on, excellent. Also, the Art Walk coming up on June 20th. We have the Art Walk finale. Very kind of them to host a party on my birthday, too, I might add. So, good stuff. 20 years Art Walk's been going on. And in addition to the Art Walk finale, during the regular year, every third Thursday of the month is Art Walk Light, I guess, where a lot of businesses pull together, and on Thursday, the third Thursday, off people go. Are we spotting ourselves on there? Great. 3rd Street Gallery. Too many people do not know where this is. This is the 2nd and 3rd floor of City Hall, which are art galleries, and they host a lot of our local artists, something like 200 works by 100 artists. Currently, there's an exhibition going on that features like 55 artists, and I encourage you to go and look at the local artists and the work that they put forth. It's really some gorgeous, gorgeous stuff in there. It's right outside my office. I enjoy looking at it every single day. The poor mural on Jackson and A Street at the Water Building that was defaced late last year. But to the good side, it was nearing the end of its life. Also, insurance paid a lot to fix it. So I think right now the request is out for artists to propose. Bring in your ideas and put another mural up on that otherwise rather bland and boring building right there at the intersection of A and Jackson. I think it'll look great, and so things will be considered by the Arts Commission and brought up to the City Council for selection. Crapitation. There. Okay. Now to my little soapbox thing that grows under my feet when I get up here on the podium sometimes. Mark Twain said it best: "No man is safe while the legislature is in session." And how true this is. This year is the season of legislating morality to the extent of anything practical. If we survive this, we can survive anything. But the point here being is that half of Moscow's properties are tax exempt. The university is exempt, schools are exempt, churches are exempt, government buildings are exempt. So out of the more or less 3.8 billion that Moscow is worth, 1.6 billion of it is off the tax rolls. So essentially we're trying to run a city on half a lung of finance. This year, everybody talks about property taxes, as well we should, but we get $7.3 million in property tax. The police department alone costs $7.7 million. So we have to backbill with other revenue sources, as well as fund the rest of the city operation from those same other sources. For example, the city of Lewiston collects almost $24 million in property taxes with only 30% more population. 300% more property tax, 30% more population. And this is a result of 1978, way back when the value of the land was established. Well, Moscow had the university, Lewiston had the paper plant and the ammo manufacturers and things like that. So they were worth more in 1978. Well, things 50 years on are not the same at all. And so I could do a lot of fun stuff with an extra $17 million in the kitty. So all of the stuff that we've discussed so far has been done only through clever financial management and an excellent city staff. So we need to work on things. Further, our friends Lewiston, who always seem to be in trouble, but Lewiston got themselves in a court case that resulted in an 18% reduction in street maintenance here in Moscow, also causing us to leave 6 vacant positions open, which includes 2 police officers, because right now we can't afford them because the Lewiston court decision impacted the way in which we can route money within the city. And so things are a little hard right now. We'll get through it. Come about 4 years from now, things should be getting back to a more even keel on things, but it has been a bit of a task. We'll get it done though. So just keep in mind that when you talk about property taxes, your property tax does not equate to what the city receives. The city receives 3% per year of last year's budget increase, that's it. So it's very predictable. But we've all watched our property taxes shoot up through the roof. And that is just because of a difference in the ratio between commercial and residential taxes. So right now, used to be 50-50, commercial, residential. Now it's about 78-22 in favor of the residential. And this is something that our favorite people down in the legislature can address. We can't do a thing about it because it's imposed upon us by the legislature. So keep that in mind. Come election, talk to your representatives and say, come on, let's straighten out this whole tax issue here, because it's not doing us any good paying property taxes, and it's certainly not doing the city any good relative to the services we are obligated to provide. Overall, I think things are looking very good around Moscow. We're making progress. We're doing good things with the resources that we have, and I'm very optimistic about the direction we're going, and, well, secretly, perhaps perversely, enjoy doing the job as being mayor. So, see, we've got a few extra minutes, so I guess question time for a few minutes, right? Wherever Sam is, there you are. So, question time. Oh, surely not. Tim.
Do you have any prognostication for us on how much money do we save when it's a bad or good, depending on how you look at it, snow year?
That would be one for Tyler, but whether it's savings or not savings, it's all budgeted in as an appropriations budget, and if we don't use it, it goes someplace else, like more chip seal on the roads or the occasional grind and inlay. Tyler, please enlighten us.
A brief answer. There's certainly savings. Obviously, if we're not running trucks, we're not burning fuel, we're not burning through plow blades. Oddly enough, some winters when it seems like we might have more savings, a bulk of our expense is in anti-icing and de-icing materials. So if we don't get a lot of snow, but we have some tough temperatures or wet snow that comes in at times that it freezes, it actually can be more expensive than plowing 4 inches of wet snow. But that savings generally will stay within the streets, and we are then able to use that for more maintenance activities. On the grand scale, the snow removal portions of the budget isn't huge, and so it's not like we can suddenly repave miles of street, but it does help a little bit.
So do we sit in silence or wait for somebody else to get brave and ask something?
Okay, Art.
Yeah, Shelley Bennett.
I never needed a microphone. In the city of Moscow, because we encourage people to not water as much, we're having trouble with the trees. What do you suggest that as a community we could do to address that? Big trees falling apart.
Yeah,
Not
so that one takes a little more homeowner work, because instead of watering vast swatches of grass, you can do a better direction of where the water goes. So within the limb area, how far out the limbs go, that's usually about how far out the roots go too. So if you keep that area watered and let the rest of the place go into xeriscape or dormancy, what would it be? In the summer, it'd be estivation, not hibernation. So let the grass grow brown, or as our Parks and Rec guys would have it, let it go golden. So, yes. So relative to the trees, right, Dave?
Mayor Becky, that would be correct. Yeah, you might look at some supplemental water for mature trees in their landscape if you're reducing the water for your park.
So we can keep the trees going, which is definitely an attribute to the city beyond compare. Like Fort Russell with all the huge trees up there, gorgeous. And so keeping them going requires a little more thought on the part of the homeowner, but definitely needs to be done.
Hey, Art, I have a question for
Kathy.
you. I know that the city of Moscow and Latah County both are concerned about affordable housing. I know that just like in the county, the city has relaxed their rules on ADUs and et cetera. But now what I'm hearing from long-term residents are complaints about street parking. They're finding that, they can't find a place to drop off their kids after school if their disabled grandfather is parked in the driveway. So I'm wondering what the city is doing about addressing parking regulations. Some of our older homes that are being cut up into multi-resident type of places. What are we doing to address the parking on the street problem in Moscow?
We're walking.
You knew it would come back to parking.
We're walking a tightrope. It's one of those issues where if you choose something from this side of the balance, that side of the balance goes out of whack, and vice versa. So currently, the provision of residential parking for single-family stuff is what it is. You don't actually own the slot of street out in front of your house. And that's become a bit of an issue with some of the larger apartment residences that have been put up with insufficient parking in the lot. So that's something that we need to look at, is that one parking space per unit is maybe not the best, especially when typically you get a one-bedroom part, you wind up with at least two people in there, and sometimes who knows how many more, and each one of them has a car. So I'm not sure how to convince people to please park your car someplace else, someplace further away, because you know you aren't going to use it for the most part. Just go get it when you need it. But I think perhaps looking over the ratio of parking spaces per residence in an apartment could help. Additional ADUs, they do require extra parking space for those, so I think that accessory dwelling units, the ADUs, are in a little bit better shape there. But just chasing people around, giving out tickets and things like that, just flushes people from one portion of a neighborhood over into the neighbors. And so the problem persists. And the only way to really get around it, I think, is to try to pry people away from their precious automobiles. And it's absolutely intractable. So I think it's just a collaborative effort that all of us have to make. And if you, as a resident, don't like that car that's been sitting in front of your house for a week, call it in. You can only park there for 3 days. Move it or lose it, baby.
With the changes at the Moscow Pullman Airport coming, are there any plans to perhaps increase transportation to and from that airport, or public transportation in general?
Yeah, the airport, as part of the design, has put up a transfer station for buses. So Pullman Transit will definitely be going out there. We're working with Smart Transit not only to establish a third route in South Moscow, but also to provide transportation across the state line, which brings on some legal issues for commercial people going back and forth, but also have a leg of Smart Transit that goes over to that transfer station at the airport where people can either then get on the airplanes and fly out or return from trips, but also transfer onto Pullman Transit and continue on into Pullman as well. So yeah, so we're working on that. The airport's done its part, putting up the transfer point. Now we need to work with Pullman Transit and Smart Transit to facilitate the interaction between the two. And get the Denver light. So, yeah. Jenny?
Mayor Betke, thank you so much for your presentation today. On the airport line, I have a question. How can the business community and how can the community in general help support the Moscow-Pullman Regional Airport, not only with a new terminal coming, but so maybe opportunities in the terminal, or also how can we help support the airport in general and Tony's and Sherry's team?
Yep. So in terms of business community, the airport's looking at advertising opportunities within the terminal. And keep in mind that that airport is the first place once a year where a lot of new residents who will be here for at least the next 4 years come in. So it's a chance for businesses to get their name out in front of people for getting new clients and new business for at least the next 4 years. It's something that happens at university airports. It doesn't happen at other places where people are just interested in getting from point A to B. These are people who are coming in here to live. Also, businesses, when you're flying away on trips, start thinking about Pullman Airport, Moscow Pullman Airport first, and before you think about Spokane or something, start bringing some patronage out there and helping prove to the airlines that, yes, people here do fly a lot, and we do appreciate our local airport as a means of getting to wherever in the world you're headed. I fly a lot, and I always try to head it out of Moscow Pullman Airport whenever I can.
Are other airlines going to be coming in?
Oh, we hope so. Airport manager Tony Bean is sitting right there, and he is off to do what he calls speed dating with airlines. And so that's where you roam around and discuss things with airlines. So further discussions with Alaska, talk to Delta, talk to United, talk to Allegiant, talk to all of these people about the possibility of bringing in more flights. Because now, with the new terminal, we can accommodate additional airlines, whereas the old terminal, we'd have to drag in a construction trailer if we wanted to put another airline in there. That is not a welcoming sight. So at the new terminal, we're holding on to things until the new terminal begins operation somewhere in mid-May. And with that, we'll be working on, okay, come on airlines, bring it in. Direct flight to Denver, maybe Salt Lake. We'd like to get an extension of the Boise flight, maybe to Portland. Most people don't know, but the #1 destination for Moscow Pullman people that's not Seattle, the next one in line, Vegas, baby. So that's where people go. And so that sparks the things, well, maybe we can get Allegiant charters, a couple times a month, an Allegiant charter to go to Vegas and back, which would be also inviting because the airport can now accommodate charter flights much more easily than in the past. So we're looking at all those options to see about enhancing travelers going through the airport.
Thank you.
Not so much a question nearly as much as a request with Chief Fry announcing his retirement today. I just thought we might take a moment to thank him for serving and leading us through some really tough years.
Yep. Exactly right. And we do appreciate you, Chief. Really do.
Mr. Mayor, Highway 95 will soon be completed, 4 lanes between Lewiston and Moscow. Airport's much closer together time-wise. What do you see the influence being of when that highway is completed?
I think the influence is going to have an impact more on growth in South Moscow than relative to airports, because people are going to go to the airport that they want to go to. With the intersection of New 95 with 4 lanes coming into South Moscow, plus the economic impact and diversification that's resulted from Schweitzer, I can see other companies beginning to move into South Moscow. And so that's why we extended the water and sewer lines to facilitate those developments that we sense are coming to that part of town. Ed Schweitzer is not one to look at the beauty of amber waves of grain or pretty canola in the spring out the windows of his current facility there. He's going to be expanding that and probably putting in other facilities down there. What we do need, and I've been working with Vista on this, is to bring in more power to South Moscow, because we're doing fine for residential power, but if you want anything industrial, we're going to need more kilowatts. And so I've been working with Vista a little bit to try to facilitate that little bit of growth that will support the rest of industry that I sense is coming to South Moscow. So I don't think airport business is going to be so much, but I can sure see additional industrial type uses occurring down there in the flats. More or less an answer, I guess. Okay, Sam, I guess it's all yours again.